Everybody. So welcome to Michael's Community Classroom, our Let's Paint. We've got Andy Jones in the studio teaching. So welcome everybody. If you're brand new, Andy's going to teach you to paint this painting in just about an hour. I will be here answering questions in the chat. So if you have a question or comment, put them in the chat and I'll try to answer them, or I'll relay them over to Andy so he can answer them. Also wanted to let you know that this video can be watched on Michael's Community Classroom page after the fact. So if you are not able to paint along with us tonight, whether you don't have your pattern or your paints, or you're just watching to get inspired, you can always go back and watch this video and paint along when you have some downtime, some quiet time, and you're ready to paint. All the product is available at Michael's or michaels.com. So we're actually going to be using Pure tonight, which is an amazing paint. It's a little bit different than our regular FolkArt, so Andy will talk to you about that and kind of walk you through it. And I'm trying to think what else. Don't forget to join our Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group if you haven't done that. It's an amazing community where Andy is on there live multiple times a week. We have a lot of great free education. We've got a lot of programs. He's got his color lessons. We've got Donna Dewberry's program. And also check out plaidonline.com because we've got, again, a lot of great education. You can get all your supplies at Michael's and then paint along with us, whether it's during the community classroom at Michael's or just one of our great other programs that we have. So again, if you have questions, let us know, and we'll try to keep a good pace. It's hard with so many people. We got a lot of people tonight. But again, if you need to catch up or go back, you can always watch this again on Michael's Classroom page. So I think, Andy, it's all yours.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kira, and welcome everyone. Happy New Year. I would like to start off the class by covering a couple of points. The first thing is that you will need the downloadable template that was on the Michael's website. Because if you don't have this design, chances are 100% that your bird is going to be misshapen and you probably will not be thrilled with that. Having said that, I'm going to show you how to transfer your design onto your canvas so that you can paint it. I am painting on a 10 by 10 canvas. And if you are painting along with us, I'm hoping that we get through in about an hour. But it may take a little bit longer this evening because I want you to do a nice job and I want to work at a nice pace. If for some reason you feel like you are falling behind and you're becoming just a little bit frustrated with how things are going, it's perfectly fine to stop and just watch along, pay attention to what we're doing, and then you can watch the recording of this and finish up your painting that way. Better to stop when you're feeling a little frustrated than to continue to paint and just not be happy with what you're doing. So let's talk about your design. You can download this from the Michael's website page, and then you can print it out on your home printer. And I have my drawing here, and what you do is you place your drawing right side up onto your canvas, and I secured it with just a piece of tape. And then I like to use a piece of artist graphite paper, and I always take my graphite paper and I put it down and I just scratch with my finger to see that I'm making a mark. That way I know that this side is the side that goes on my canvas. So I slip my graphite paper underneath my drawing, and then I take a stylus, which is like a ballpoint pen, that just doesn't have any ink in it, but it's just a little ball on a shaft there. And you just go over the outline and just take your time. You can pick this up and check. So when you're done, you will have transferred your design to your canvas. So I'm going to give you a minute or two to do that if you haven't already done that. So you need to transfer your design onto your canvas, and then we will begin creating the color mixtures for our background and then start painting. So I'm going to give you a little time to do that. If you don't have graphite paper, you can simply take your design, turn it on the back and take a pencil, and then you can just rub over the design lines with like a number 2 pencil all over the back. Then when you turn that right side up and go back over the lines, you'll transfer your lines to your canvas. So that's a little cheat there that usually works every time. So I hope everyone had a nice holiday season and a nice New Year's. So this is the first official day back at work, and we are raring to go with a new painting. So probably getting the design on is probably the hardest thing to get started with, but it's important, and that's why we give you the downloadable template for some of our classes. Just makes things easier because I'm here to teach you how to paint, and trying to teach a drawing lesson, especially for a bird, is just a little bit difficult. Okay, if you can't find the paint colors or don't have all of the paint colors, I'll give a description of the color, and you can use any acrylic paint that seems to be close to what I'm using. So it's not crucial that you have the FolkArt Pure Artist Pigments. They are wonderful paints. They were new to Michaels this year, and they are a very, very heavy-bodied acrylic paint. So they are very, very thick, but you can use them for textured effects, or you can thin them down and use them for traditional acrylic painting techniques, or thin them even further and do some transparent kind of watercolor effects. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to put out on my palette some yellow ochre, and yellow ochre is kind of a deep straw color. It's a nice gold color, kind of a medium value, and I'm going to put out some titanium white. You can use any kind of white that you have, doesn't matter, just a good white paint. And I'm also going to put out some black. This is FolkArt Pure Artist Pigments. Color is pure black, but any black that you have will work. And I'm also going to put out some burnt umber. And burnt umber is the color of a Hershey's chocolate bar. So it's a nice dark brown, kind of a chocolate color. And we are going to mix up a couple of colors to create our background. So I'm going to start with some titanium white, and to this white, I'm going to add just a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to mix that together, making a nice light gold color. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of black to this. Doesn't take much black, just a small amount of black, just to kind of tone that gold color down. And every time you do this sort of mixing of colors, you're going to create a different color. So everyone's painting will have an individual look to it. So I keep wiping my palette knife off on a shop towel so that I don't keep putting paint back into my clean puddles here. So adding just a little bit more black and mixing that in thoroughly. So I started with titanium white. I added some yellow ochre and some pure black. So I'm making like a nice kind of putty color.
And what colors, Andy, are you mixing?
I started with titanium white, then I added some yellow ochre, and then some pure black. So I end up with a nice putty color. And I'm going to make another mixture of the same colors. So I'm going to start with some titanium white. But this time I'm going to add a little bit more yellow ochre than I did to the first puddle. Didn't quite add enough there. And then I'm going to add some black to this. I'm making a darker version of my putty color. And then to this, I'm going to also add just a little bit of burnt umber. And just mix that in. I just wanted to create a nice neutral color for the background so that our cardinal and those few holly leaves really stand out. And if you didn't want to mix this with your palette knife, you could just mix it all with your brush as you go. But I think for most people, taking the time to mix up a couple of puddles of paint is probably going to be a good idea. All right, so I'm going to give you just a minute to mix that up before we start in with our actual painting. So it's funny, I can't see your faces, but all I can see are the comments, and I know everybody always wants me to slow down. And so I will tell you that I'm going as slow as I can, but our color mixtures are the lighter color here we made with titanium white plus yellow ochre plus a little bit of pure black. Our darker color is titanium white plus more yellow ochre plus black plus burnt umber. So those are the two colors that we mixed up. I am going to give you another minute to get those colors mixed up, and then we will actually start painting. So I'm glad that you all have joined us tonight or this afternoon, depending on where you are tuning in from. It's always nice to have you all with us, and I know that an hour is simply just never enough time to get anything done. But we try to make sure that we have something that's interesting and fun, and that you can learn things from it. And then you can always watch this again on the Michael's Community Classroom page, so that, like I said, if you're falling behind, don't get frustrated. Just pause and catch up when you're trying to read some of these comments as they're going by, but they are coming fast and furious.
Yeah, I know, I can't keep up either.
I can't either. And I know that it's frustrating for you all, but we want you to have good looking paintings and want you all to have fun, because painting is one of those things that should be fun and everyone should enjoy working with. Okay, everyone, pay attention to what I'm going to teach you next, because it is important that you understand not only what I'm doing, but how I do it. So I'm going to show you how to hold your brush. I want you to put the handle of your brush where your pinky meets your palm. That's where the handle of your brush goes. Then you grab the brush and you hold it like this to paint. All right, so I'm not holding it like a pencil. This is a 1-inch flat brush. You want to use a big brush for this background because we've got a sizable area to cover, and I don't want you, here's the final picture right here. I don't want you playing around with this. I want you to just put the paint on and get it on there and get done. So yes, this brush does not have any water in it. I will let you know when you need to put water in your brush. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick up some of my darker putty color, and I'm going to just start carefully applying this color right next to my design lines. And if you get just a little tiny bit over your line, that's okay, as long as you can still see your design line. But we're just going to brush some of this on. and I'm using only enough paint to cover my canvas and to apply it without having to scrub the color onto the canvas. So just enough paint to cover your canvas and to apply it easily without having to scrub the color on. Okay, so what I'm going to do next, you can see my brush is just about not much paint left on it. And I'm going to pick up some of my lighter putty color, and I'm just going to begin to apply that. And where the two colors come together, I'm just going to press on one corner of the brush and then the other corner of the brush, just to softly blend those colors together. And then just brush some of this putty color on right out to the edge. So just pick up a little bit of paint as you need it. And then I'm going back, not cleaning out my brush or doing anything different, picking up the darker color and just starting to apply it right around the edge of the bird.
Andy, can you tell us the colors you used to make this darker color again, please?
Yes, it is titanium white plus yellow ochre plus pure black plus a little burnt umber. Okay, so I'm just going to begin to brush some of this out. And I don't want just the same width of color right around the bird. So it's wider here, got some narrower areas there. And I'm just going to bring some of this out further. Then I'm going to pick up some of my lighter color, and we're just going to brush some of that on. And where the two colors come together, just press on one corner of the brush, then on the other corner, just to blend those colors together. And you should have plenty of time to do this. But I'm working right along and not playing in the paint. I'm just putting this on and blending it, moving my color around. And we're just filling in the background. The background is not the important part of the painting. We just want to get a couple of different colors on there, just so it's not all one color. And if you see some brush marks, that's perfectly fine. In fact, it's probably going to look a little more interesting that way. Just fill in that background. And this is why we wanted to use a big 1-inch brush for this, because there's nothing detailed, nothing to be concerned about other than really filling in the canvas. Okay, now I'm going to wait just a moment. I'm going to pause just a moment, and you all can continue to work on this. And I'm just wiping the excess paint off of my brush on my shop towel. And while that's happening, I'm just going to give you a moment to catch up with me before we move on.
Yeah, and Andy, so I don't know if you can see the chat, but I put the Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group. I put the link in the chat for that. And then also the link for the michaels.com. So where you went to sign up for this class, you can watch this painting and all our other classes after the fact on michaels.com. So I just put that link again in the chat for everybody just to make it easy. So
okay, that's wonderful.
Or you can just go back tomorrow to their community classroom page and you'll be able to view the video.
Perfect. That's great, Kira. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I will say that in our Facebook group, we have, we're going to start out on our Technique Tuesday, which is tomorrow at noon Eastern time. We're going to start out with some brush control skills for you. So going all the way back to the basics here at the beginning of the year. All right, so I'm going to take some of my darker color and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of black and make that color even darker. So add a little black and a little brown to that, a little burnt umber. See, I'm just mixing that in there with my brush. I just want to make that color a little darker. And then I'm just going to apply some of this dark color on my canvas. Pick up the original putty color and then just blend the edges of that just a little bit. And this is where the FolkArt Pure Artist Pigments are so great, because the acrylic paint is still wet enough to do some gentle blending. So just brush a little bit of that on. Might pick up a little bit of that and just add some over here so that we create some balance of dark and light colors. I think that's probably enough going on in the background. And as soon as I say that, I see that I want to add a little bit more up here, just to create some interest. And just soften that color in. And if some brush marks are still visible, that's perfectly fine. Okay, now that we have our background in, I am going to just begin to dry my canvas with a hairdryer. And it's going to make a lot of racket, so I apologize for that. But if we're going to paint our cardinal and leaves in there, we need to have our background dry. Okay, sorry about all that noise. I know there's nothing more fun than watching your teacher dry paint. Okay, so I'm going to push my sleeves up. And we are going to put some new paint out on our palette. I'm going to put out some Naphthal Crimson, which is a bright kind of, I'm sorry, I got out the wrong color. We'll use that, but that's not what I was meant to put out. Naphthal Crimson is your color that is like a stop sign. Just like everyone else, sometimes have trouble getting into my bottles of new paint. But Naphthal Crimson is the stop sign red, and I have Alizarin Crimson, which is a burgundy color. And I'm also going to put out some red light, which is a little bit of a orangey red color. And if you need to get some more paint out of your bottle, just use your palette knife and it scoops right out. But these are going to be the colors that we really use for our cardinal. So again, Naphthal Crimson, Alizarin Crimson, and red light. Those are our three red colors. We will also use a little Dioxazine Purple, which is, I always think of this as your grape jelly color.
Would
Okay.
black cherry work, Andy?
Blackberry would probably work for your Alizarin Crimson.
Okay.
But you're going to need a stop sign red and a little bit of a red orangey color.
Okay.
All right, but I mean, you can make any kind of color that you need to work. If you didn't have Alizarin Crimson, you could use like FolkArt's True Burgundy. You could use berry wine. You could use black cherry. All sorts of burgundy colors will work just fine. All right, so we're going to start painting the tail feathers of our cardinal. So I'm shifting down to a nice number 12 flat brush. I did not put the brush in water. I'm just picking up Naphthal Crimson on the flat brush, and I'm going to use the chisel edge of the flat brush and carefully paint in the cardinal's tail feathers. There are basically 3 tail feathers on this particular cardinal that we're showing. So just make sure that the outside edges are nice and smooth. A cardinal is not what I would consider a very fluffy bird. So we want the outside edges to be nice and smooth. So here's how we're going to shade the bird. I'm wiping the paint off of my brush, and I do that by folding a paper towel over the brush and pinch and pull the brush so that I groom the brush back into a nice flat brush shape. So that's a very good habit to get into. All right, so now I'm going to pick up some Alizarin Crimson, and I might add just a little bit of black to this. I added too much black there. Just takes a little tiny bit of black, but I want this to be a very, very, very dark burgundy color. And so taking the excess paint off the brush, so I just have a little bit on the brush, and I'm just going to apply it right along the top, or not the top, it's where the tail feathers go underneath the branch. And then I'm going to basically use the chisel edge of my brush and just dab down the tail and create this little separation marks. And then just a little bit of softening there. All right, so we have the tail feathers undercoated and we have shaded them. So I'm going to wipe that dark color out of my brush.
Hey, Andy, what size brush are you using?
I'm using a number 12 flat brush.
Okay, and then could you also hold up the painting to the camera? So they can see the tail. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Kira, for letting me know. All right, so now I'm going to pick up some red light on my brush, and I'm going to start down here at the tip of the tail and just pat on a little bit of light color and just carry that up opposite the shading. Turn this around this way so that I can get this little edge here a little bit lighter. And we're not done with this. We're going to come back and we're going to put on some accents of kind of a purplish gray color. Just getting some light on there. So that's what we have so far for our tail. Let's bring it up close. Okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to the wing. So once again, I'm going to pick up Naphthol Crimson on my number 12 flat brush. I have not put my brush in water. There's no need to put your brush into water unless your teacher tells you to do that. And I probably won't be telling you to do that for a good while. Wetting your brush does a couple of different things. First of all, it's going to thin your paint down. It's going to make your paint more transparent, and it's going to make your paint a little dry a little bit faster than you want it to. All right, so just brushing this Naphthal Crimson on, then I'm going to wipe the excess red out of my brush, and I'm going to pick up my Alizarin Crimson, and I remember I'd added a little bit of black to this, so it's a nice dark color, and we're going to put this dark color right next to the bird's body. Try not to let your bird get out of shape. I'm just softening this dark color out into the wing just a little bit. Don't be afraid of this dark color, because you're going to need to make sure to have some nice dark color on your bird in order to have some of your highlights show up. If there's no dark shading, then you can't have pretty highlights.
Can you hold him up again, Andy? Like the one you're painting
Yes, I
up?
can.
There we go. Nope, other way. Yep. Perfect.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So I've added my
there we go.
dark color. Okay,
Perfect.
okay. All right, so I'm going to wipe the dark color out of my brush. I'm not putting it in water. Again, I'll let you know when we need to do that. And I'm going to pick up some red light on my brush, and we're just going to highlight a little bit just above the branch, right on that outside edge of the wing. Just putting a little bit of red on there and softening it in. Let me hold that up for everyone to see. Okay. All right, we're doing good. I'm sure that you all are doing good and enjoying this. For some reason, I feel like we're moving at a really slow pace, but I'm just trying to make sure that you all are able to kind of keep up with this, because we've got quite a bit more to do. But we are about to tackle the body of the bird. And so we're going to start with our Naphthal Crimson. Again, no water in the brush. Just put this on and pat to apply the color. Just put the color on and then stretch it out. You want to use just enough paint to cover the canvas and to make sure that it's not difficult to apply the paint. You shouldn't feel like you're having to scrub this color on. All right, so that's where our red paint goes, our Naphthal Crimson goes. Now, just as we've done on the tail and the wing, I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm not cleaning it in water, but I'm going to pick up some Alizarin Crimson and just a little tiny bit of black on my brush and mix those two colors together. And then I'm going to begin to apply this on the left side of the bird's body. And so I'm using the edge of the brush to really push that paint and get a nice clean edge. And then I'm just going to pat that color on and soften it following the contour of the bird's body. So that means that this red is going to curve around. And I'm going to carry a little bit of this red, or this dark shading red, up underneath the little black mask and soften that in a little bit. It's a bird, so it doesn't have to be completely soft and smoothly blended, but I'm going to put some of this dark color right around the bird's leg and right where the tail meets the branch. Again, just softening that in a little bit. Wipe the brush, and then once again pick up some red light, and we're going to apply this on the area right against the wing. And then we're just going to pat some of this back in. We're not done with the shading and the highlighting. We're going to put some more on once we dry this a little bit, because it's hard to layer highlights while your paint is still wet. So this is the first bit that we have on there. So we've got the body done, but it doesn't look quite complete because we haven't brightened up our highlights and we haven't added any of our accent colors over on the dark side yet. All right, so I'm going to pause for just a minute and let you all catch up with this, and then we're going to move on to the top of the bird's head. So I'm going to give you just a minute to catch up with this. And while you all are catching up, I'm going to dry mine with a hair dryer. Okay, while I was drying that, I did notice a few comments, and I would like to let you know that I am using a 10 by 10 canvas panel. That's why it's very, very flat. It's a nice canvas board, and they are available at Michael's, so you can get them there. And I've taped mine onto a larger piece of cardboard, because sometimes if I need to pick up something, or when I'm painting, I can paint off the edge and not get paint on my hands. So that's just another quick tip that you can employ as you need to. All right, we are ready to move on. And I know some of you were thinking, no, I'm not ready to move on, but the time has come. We have to move on. And I know that no matter what we do, we're moving too fast, but we've only got so much time. And so we have to keep moving. And I know that it's just the way it is. And Kira knows that I never think there's enough time for a painting class. So I know when we teach we have some classes that we do once a month here at Plaid, and those are 3-hour classes. And I would just assume sometimes that they go ahead and be 4 hours long. But that's not what's happening tonight. We are painting a cardinal in just about an hour. All right, so I've wiped my brush. This is again my number 12 flat brush, and I've picked up Naphthal Crimson, and I'm just going to apply this to the bird, not getting it into the black area and not going quite down to meet the dark area, but just sort of in the mid-range. And here I am just going to use the edge of the flat brush to make some little feathery bits I'm sure that's not the correct anatomical name for these feathers, but we're just calling them feathery bits. I mean, you all know exactly what I'm talking about. The little fluffy tuft at the top of a cardinal's head is what
we could create a dictionary with all the things we make up about animals and birds and plants and bugs.
Oh, yes. I was working on a book one time, and the editor of the book decided to call. Usually she would just email questions, but she decided to call because I was not using the correct botanical term for something. And, excuse me, she had contacted some curator at the New York Botanical Gardens to ask his opinion on something. And I had to tell her that these people are painting flowers. They are not getting a degree in botany, and they will understand what a pollen dot is. And she's like, well, you can't just call it a pollen dot. And I'm like, yes, I can.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows what a dot of pollen is. So we had that discussion, but you know, you just got to call things what they are. And these are just little fluffy feathers. And so I'm going to wipe the Naphthal Crimson off of my brush and pick up some Alizarin Crimson plus a little tiny dot of black. It does not take much black, but just want to deepen that shading color a little bit. And now we're going to just join the head and the body of the bird with that dark color, and then add some dark little feathery bits. And then I'm just going to carry some of that dark color up into the head, just a little bit, just kind of blending and softening some of that dark color onto his head. All right, let me show you what that looks like. Oh, I'm not liking that at all. And let me tell you what I'm not liking. It looks as though he's got like a little torch coming out of the top of his head. And he needs just a little bit of feathery stuff going on in between there.
He needs extensions.
He does need some extensions. I need extensions too. I think I would scare you all with if I had hair. So I just added another little bit in there, and you can see now it doesn't look like he's got a little flame shooting out of the top of his head. So got to make your bird look pretty. Okay, so I'm going to dry this while you all finish painting yours. Someone just asked if gesso was applied to the canvas. It was not. If you have a good quality canvas, usually the white primer that is applied to the canvas is sufficient, and you don't need to add more primer to yours. Okay, so my little bird is dry, which is great because I'm ready to bump up the highlights a little bit, and I'm going to do that by using some yellow light and red light together on my brush. And once again, I've got a new bottle of paint here, and to get that seal off of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I don't need to lighten the red light too much, but I'm going to pick up red light on my number 12 flat brush, and I'm just going to stroke into a little bit of the yellow light and just mix that in. And that little bit of yellow light is going to make this red light just what I need to show up on my bird really, really well. So I'm going to, first place I'm going to put this is, we'll do a little bit down here on the tail, just brush that up. right where I need to create a little bit more of a separation between the tail feathers. And I'm just stroking this on. I'm not really softening it in. So over here on the wing, I'm going to add just a little bit of a highlight on the outside edge. And then I'm going to do the same thing here on the body of the bird. Just dragging some of this paint on. And it's very thick paint. And we just need to just kind of skim this color along. Just to highlight the little bird there. And then we're going to do the same thing up on the top of his head. Just adding a little bit of a brighter highlight there. Okay. So far, so good. Kira?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that anyone's going to be upset if we run just a little bit over tonight?
I don't think so. I mean, I think people want to finish, so I think it's okay.
Okay. Was just looking at the time, and I think we're probably going to need just a few extra minutes.
Yep, I think that's fine. We've gone over before.
Okay, I just don't want people to feel any more undue pressure than they need to.
Oh, I think we would feel the pressure if you stopped.
Oh yes. Okay.
Or went faster.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to keep this at a moderately.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
All right. So I've got Alizarin Crimson with just a little bit of black on my brush, and now I'm going to add just a little bit of Dioxazine Purple to this, just changing the color just a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to come back in, and right underneath the branch, I'm just going to pull down some extra dark color there, and going to do the same thing above the branch. So just put the brush down and pull up a little extra darkness and accent the dark side of the bird with just color that's just a little bit darker. So again, this is Alizarin Crimson plus a little bit of black and a little bit of Dioxazine Purple. We do need to add that purple color in, and you'll see why in just a minute. But just adding a little bit of extra dark on the shadow side of the bird. Okay, now I'm going to just take that dirty brush that I had, and I'm picking up some titanium white. And you can see here that now I've got a nice violet purpley color. I'm going to add just a little bit more Dioxazine Purple to this. It's not terribly bright or light in value, but it's a nice, really kind of dusty, pinky purpley color. And here's what we're going to do with this. We're going to take most of the color off of our brush. So what I do is I just take my brush and I lay it almost flat down on my towel, and I just knock the excess paint off the outside edge of the brush. So my brush does not have much paint on it, and I'm going to begin to just kind of make the bird's tummy as round as my tummy is. So just kind of bring that right around and add just a little bit out here. Let me bring that up there so you could see where I put some of that pinky purple color on. I'm going to put a little bit more on there so you can really see it. It's sometimes difficult to put things on the painting the way I would normally paint it and have you see it on camera. So I'm having to make mine a little bit lighter than I would ordinarily paint it. but you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I think you can see that pretty well. All right, and I'm going to put a little bit on the tail. Just run a couple of little lines of that on the tail. You see that little purpley color right on the tail? Okay, I'm going to give you just a moment to do that. And I'm just going to set that brush aside. And when we start painting again, we're going to paint the beak next. Just giving you a minute to catch up.
Yep, everyone's just painting along.
Okay, like I said, I know it's tough to keep up with this, but that's the name of the game.
Yep, and you can always watch it on Michael's community classroom after.
Yes, and when you've finished your painting, please post it to our Facebook group. It's Let's Paint with Plaid on Facebook, and hashtag Let's Paint Challenge, so we can always find your paintings very, very easily that way. And I know that we're going to see lots of beautiful winter cardinals. I'm always very impressed with the work you all do.
Yeah, that's the best part, going to see everybody's either tonight or tomorrow morning when you wake up, like they're all there.
Oh yeah, it's crazy good stuff that you all do. And I know sometimes you feel a little frustrated while we're doing it in class, but I'm telling you, when you see them, it's all worth it. So somebody just asked what I'm putting my paint on. This is a wax-coated palette, and I'm seeing too many comments right now, so we'll try to take care of a few of them. This is a wax-coated palette, and you can buy these at Michael's or online, depending on where you need to purchase your painting supplies, but it's a wax-coated disposable palette, and it is fantastic. I happen to have a very large one here that is 18 by 24. The most common size is probably 12 by 16.
I think I posted on the one, I put a link for an artist loft at Michael's, and I think it was like a 9 by 12-ish, but
Yep.
yeah. So I
9
did
by
post
12
the link to that.
9 by 12 is fine. I like the 12 by 16 because that gives you enough room, but this 18 by 24 is just heaven for me. All right, so somebody wanted to see a bottle of the Pure Artist Pigments paints. So here is the Dioxazine Purple, probably not the best color to show off. We'll look at Viridian. So it comes in a black bottle, and it has a metallic label on it, and it says Pure on it. And so these are, again, are a very, very heavy-bodied acrylic paint. They are stiff when they come out of the bottle, but you can use them to get nice textural applications, or you can thin them down till they are completely transparent and use them in a watercolor effect. All right, we're back to painting now because we're almost at an hour mark. And you can see we've got a few more things to do. So I'm going to brush mix some yellow light and medium yellow together. And this I've shifted down to a number 8 flat brush. So I'm just mixing medium yellow and yellow light together, making a nice cardinal beak color. And then I'm going to just begin to fill in the beak with this lovely yellow color. I'm going to wipe the brush off, and I'm going to stroke one edge of the brush into burnt sienna, which is this kind of rusty brown color. And just stroke that edge in and then blend it here on the palette to soften the color. So now I'm carrying 2 colors in my brush. I have the original yellow mixture, and then I have half the brush in burnt sienna. And I'm going to apply that burnt sienna where the beak meets the black mask on the bird. So just pat that shading color on. And then do the same thing on the lower part of the beak. And then soften that out. And I'm going to add a little extra shading here on the lower part of the beak, just so that it's got a nice division and you can tell that the top and the bottom are separate. Okay, I'm going to wipe the brush out. And I'm just going to stroke the half of the brush that had the yellow mixture in it into some titanium white and soften that on my palette a little bit. And then we're just going to add a little bit of a highlight to the top beak, or the top portion of the beak, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to give you a moment to do that. And then we're going to move on, trying to give you just a little pauses so that you can catch up as best you can. The next couple of things we're going to do is really going to give the bird some personality. It is hard to keep up. I see that comment and I feel your pain. Believe it or not, I have been in your shoes and have taken classes where I thought the teacher went so fast that it wasn't fair. But we do the best we can. And right now, I think we're all doing very good to keep up. And we are so fortunate to be able to have this kind of platform to paint with everyone, especially in these times when we can't be together in the same room. All right, so I now have a number 2 script liner, which is a liner brush that has long bristles in it. And this is my favorite kind of liner brush to use. And I'm going to dip my brush into water, and I'm going to pick up some black paint, and I'm going to make a puddle of paint on my palette. I don't want to say this paint is thin. I want to consider the paint to be juicy or fluid, I think is a better description of what I want, because I don't want the paint terribly watery. I want it to be able to move very easily, but to still have some body to it. So I'm just thinning my paint with a little bit of water. And then I am going to paint the black mask on the Cardinal. Now, please, 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 please do not paint this to look like little needles of black coming out into the red. They need to have a little bit of thickness to them, and they're little just jiggity jaggedy areas, but they are not a series of razor thin lines. So if you paint razor thin lines, then it's going to look like some sort of cross between a cardinal and a porcupine. And that is not a good look. So we're just creating some of these little black areas. And it goes right down to the beak. And we're just going to fill this area in, but we are not going to paint the eye. We're painting around the eye at this point. And work neatly and carefully just to fill in this area of the cardinal. I'm sure it probably has some specific feather name for it, but I don't know what it is, so just call it the black area. I have a friend who is a wildlife artist, and she knows just every little teeny feather name on a bird. And I just, this is not a correctly painted cardinal. It's a decorative cardinal. I think you all knew what it was when you looked at it, and that's really all that I was shooting for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes that's all you need to do is to paint enough so that somebody knows what you're painting, and you don't have to go beyond that. And this is certainly one of those times. We're also in luck that there are not that many birds that are red with a little black mask on them. So that helps us a long way with our viewing audience. If you are unskilled with your liner brush, this is something, it's one of those brushes that takes time and practice to learn how to use efficiently. But once you can use a liner brush, then you can do all sorts of amazing things. Okay, so we have that painted in. I'm going to give you a moment to do that, and then we're going to paint the eye. So y'all are doing a really, really good job tonight. I will give you a big hint that's probably one of the best pieces of advice that I can give you if you're interested in becoming a better painter. If you will paint tonight's lesson again and do it within a week, that's within 7 days, your next painting will be so much better, and you will remember so much about what we learned tonight, and you'll really be surprised. If you wait more than 7 days to repeat this, you will remember approximately 50% of what we did tonight. Your brain forgets that much that fast. So it's important that you repeat the lesson within 7 days. That's one of those things that these really smart academic people have figured out over time. But that's how people get good at playing a musical instrument or get good in the kitchen, is because they do things over and over and over, and they practice and repeat their lessons as soon as one lesson is finished. Okay, so let's talk about painting the eye. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the eye with black, and I'm going to leave the tiniest little margin on the left hand, kind of like the area between 6 o'clock would be at the bottom, 6, 7, 8, probably between 8 o'clock. I'm sorry, I'm very analog in a digital world, and I just looked at the digital clock and I'm like, okay, that's not going to help me. So probably from 8 o'clock till 5 o'clock is where I want to leave a little tiny gap there. All right, so I'm going to paint in the eyeball, but leave that gap between like 5 and 8. Okay, so there you can see the little tiny gap that I left. Oh, that's showing up really well. So that's just that light color there is the canvas showing. All right. So now I'm going to rinse my brush out, and I'm going to pick up some titanium white, and I'm thinning this white down, and I'm going to add a little bit of black and a little bit of purple, because I just want to make a soft gray color with a little bit of a violet look to it. And you may need to thin this down with a little bit more water. Okay, then I'm going to paint that little crescent that we left of canvas. I'm going to paint that with this gray color. So it's a little, there's some little piece of fuzz. Can't imagine that that would be dog hair, but chances are it was. So I'm going to paint that little crescent. Oh, I did that better than I thought I was going to. All right, so let me show you that. It's always surprising when you do something well. Okay, so there's that little crescent of gray that's painted. And we just have one more thing to do to bring the little birds alive. So I'm going to rinse out my brush. And I'm going to pick up some titanium white with nothing else on my brush. And I'm going to paint the highlight in the eye. All right, now let me tell you that this highlight in the eye is not a tiny, tiny, tiny little pin dot of white. If you do that tiny, tiny, tiny little pin dot of white, you're going to have a very, very irritated looking bird. The highlight in the eye needs to have just a little bit of size to it. Sorry about that. Okay, so you can see it's a white highlight, but not just a teeny tiny little pin dot. There's a little bit of size to it. So I'm going to put that on, and that's going to go basically at the edge of the eyeball right next to the black mask. I'm just going to put that on there, and then I'll show you. Okay, there you see it. So it's a black eye with that little gray crescent and then a white highlight.
It's cute.
So that bird does look pretty cute, I have to say. Okay, we are doing pretty good on time, I have to say. Can I hold the picture forward? I'm not sure exactly what forward means, but I'm going to assume that you want to see it up close.
Yeah, I think you have two views. There's two camera views. So there's an overhead and a front on. So if somebody's looking at your front on, they can't see when you hold it up like that.
Okay, I didn't think anybody was looking at me front on. I thought you were just looking at me overhead.
You can pick how you see you, because there should be two of you on there.
Okay, well, you're better off because I'm only painting for the people who are watching overhead.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right, so there we have that. Now, we need to paint our branch. That's the next thing. So I'm going to use my number 8 flat brush, and I'm going to pick up some burnt umber and just a little tiny bit of black, mostly brown, but we're darkening it up just a little bit. And this is pretty simple because I don't want to spend much time, and there's no reason to, because everybody understands that your bird is sitting on a branch. So we don't have to beat that drum too hard. All right, so I'm just going to start right here where the branch goes across the bird's tail. And I'm just using the edge of the brush just to scrub back and forth and just make a little bit of a branch, a little brown branch. So just kind of scrubbing back and forth. And then part of this branch curves up and just becomes a little bit of a twig up there. So not much happening there. And then the other part comes around and curves and becomes the stem of our holly leaf. Just going to carry that like that. Okay, so that's our branch filled in. Going to wipe my brush off. Going to pick up some white and just brush mix that white in with what was left on my brush, because I want a really light color, but I don't want it to be white. This is going to kind of be a dirty brown color. And then I'm just going to use the edge of my brush and just highlight a little bit, just to add a little bit of interest and texture to the branch. But obviously I'm not spending a lot of time doing this because no one needs to be concerned about this branch more than just seeing that that's what the bird's sitting on. Okay, so there you can see where I've just added a little bit of highlight onto the branch. Okay, so next I'm going to take my liner brush and rinse it out because I want to pick up some black paint. And we have to give this little bird some legs and feet. So I'm going to thin down some pure black. Again, I want it nice and fluid. And I'm just going to very carefully paint the little bird's legs and feet. So the legs just are black. And they come down. And then we have two little toes that go over the front of the branch and one that starts to go behind there. And if you did not know, birds have the ability when they land on something and they lean back, their little feet, it's kind of like a little pair of pliers that clamp down on the branch. That's how they can sit on a branch and not fall off. Their body weight makes their little talons grip the branch. So that's your bit of bird trivia tonight, brought to you by National Geographic. All right, so again, we've got a couple of little toes that curl around the front of the branch, and then a little toe that kind of goes back behind. Make sure that the leg is in proportionate size to the bird. These legs are not, they're not really big and fat, but they're also not just a tiny little fine line. You have to look and make sure that it looks kind of the correct size. Now I'm going to take a little bit of white, or I could take a little bit of that lavender gray that we used on the eye, and I'm going to highlight the legs just a little bit. So especially here where the legs going over the feet are coming over the branch there, we need to just highlight those front two little claws, and then just a little bit of highlight on the leg there. And then we're going to just drag a little bit of highlight over here on this leg and get those front two little claws highlighted so that it shows that they're wrapping around the branch. So let me get that up there for you all to see. Just some simple little highlights on there. Makes all the difference in the world. All right, now we've got some leaves to paint. So I think during class, I'm going to be happy if you do one in class and then you can do the others on your own and don't have to watch me paint the same thing 3 times. So I am going to now put out some Viridian. You can use any kind of dark, bright green that you have. Viridian is a very, very intense kind of blue-green color It's like the color of a bottle fly. And I'm going to pick up some Viridian and a little bit of black together on the brush, making a very, very dark green. And I'm just going to paint one of the big holly leaves, and I'm just going to paint the leaf solid green. So this is a brush mixture of Viridian and black. Please make sure that you keep the outside edges of the leaf nice and clean. Holly leaves are not fuzzy. They're very, very sharp, crisp, clean leaves. Brush that on. I think holly leaves are probably one of the prettiest leaves to paint because they have such a graceful shape to them. And those little points are so, so pretty. Okay, hard part is done. So I'm going to quickly dry this leaf and give you just a second. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, but you asked if it was common for an artist to turn their canvas. I think it would be safe to say that it makes sense for me to turn my canvas because I want to paint where it's comfortable for me. And so rather than trying to twist myself around, it's easier to move the canvas. So I'm going to dry this really quickly. Okay, so now my leaf is dry, and I'm going to wipe that color out of my brush, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow light and medium yellow, and just kind of brush mix this together. And I can add a little bit of Viridian to that because I just want to create a nice light green color, not too bright to start off with, but lighter than what I undercoated my leaf with. All right. So not much paint on my brush. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to follow the natural curve of that stem, and it's going to create a graceful arc on my leaf. Let me make this just a little bit brighter so it's a little easier for you to see. So coming off of the stem, you see that I've got this beautiful arc on my leaf. Okay, so I'm going to wipe the excess paint off of my brush, and I'm very lightly going to begin right next to that line, and I'm just going to soften some of this lighter green out into the leaf. Just like that. So you can see that basically that leaf is already starting to have a nice shape to it. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more yellow light and lighten that color just a little bit more in the same puddle that I'm working with, making sure that I take the excess paint off on my paper towel. Don't want much paint on my brush. And I'm going to begin to add a little bit stronger highlight. And now you can see how that's brightening up that leaf a little bit. And I'm going to do it just one more time, adding more yellow light, just brush mixing that in. And all three leaves are painted the same way. Very, very little paint on your brush. And we're just going to add a little bit more of a highlight there. And that leaf doesn't need anything else. So the other two leaves are painted exactly the same way. using the same colors. All right, I think we've run over time, as I was afraid we would do, but I think I've given you all of the information, and I think that you will be able to paint these other two leaves just fine on your own. So let's find out if we have any major questions or problems that we can tackle very quickly here at the end of class. So can you help me with this, Kira?
What's that, Andy?
I said, can you help me? Do we have any burning questions
Oh,
that we need to answer? Okay.
Nope. I've been private chatting with everybody, but
Okay.
lots of amazing, thank you,
Okay.
all the good stuff.
Let me stop and just recommend to everyone that when your painting is dry, that you apply a varnish to your painting. And I like the FolkArt Clear Coat High Shine Glaze or the FolkArt Clear Coat Sealer in the gloss finish. So one of those, I like a glossy finish on my canvas. So I think once your painting is dry, when you varnish it, you're going to see the colors come. Oh, are these birds always fat? Yes, these birds are always fat. They're cuter when they're fat. No one likes a skinny bird. So make sure to varnish your painting and have fun with it. I think I can't wait to see what you all are going to do with this. So yeah. I want to see, I've got a couple of more little items. I want to show you what next week's class is going to be. So this is a pine cone painting that Jessie Jennings did. So she's going to be teaching this, and it is highlighted with beautiful treasure gold on this.
That looks beautiful when you hold it like that.
So you're not going to want to miss this. And I will be back next month with another Michael's Community Classroom painting. And I think I'm going to give you my heart next month.
So
let's paint, everybody.
Yeah. So, thank you, guys. Thank you, Michaels. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Again, go to michaels.com, the community classroom page, and watch this and paint again or paint along with Andy when you have some time and you have all your supplies. Check out our Let's Paint Facebook group. I put the link in the chat to that also. Get all your supplies at Michael's and paint along with Andy and the rest of the awesome team. You know, Jessie will be back and Kirsten coming up. So thank you, guys.
We've got great things for you. You are not going to be bored.
Yeah, no, so much stuff coming up this year. And we'll be back on Wednesday teaching some desk organization, some things to get your house organized in the new year with Michael. So Wednesday afternoon, we'll be back here.
All right. Well, thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity to teach you, and we'll look forward to having you in another class real soon.
Yeah. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.